15. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5.
This is RFD Today, a daily look at the key topics impacting rural Illinois. If you live in Illinois, we examine the issues impacting you, your income, and your community. Here's your host for today's program, Bill Shawnke.
Hey, good Wednesday to you, Illinois. Thanks for joining us for this adventure in broadcasting on the 15th of May. George Brett's birthday, by the way, hit 385 in the 1985 World Series, but I don't want to do anything to Cardinals fans on a day like this, especially those who've been through enough already this spring from a lack of planting progress, and then this earlier today, in fact. One tweet from National Weather Service, the one based in Lincoln, talks about a warming trend, but then here's one that was from 6 hours ago. Severe thunderstorms remain possible for Thursday night from around I-74 northward. Main threats, hail and locally damaging wind gusts. So there's that one. So another one that was from a couple of hours ago up north, National Weather Service in Twin Cities. The Twin Cities in this case were being Minneapolis and St. Paul. They say we're headed for a very active period of weather with several inches of rain possible over the next 7 days. Severe weather is also possible late Friday with the large hail being the main threat. Temperatures will be warm, but by Saturday the highs will only be 40s or 50s. So what do you suppose that means for planting progress up there? And if they get much more rain, what do you suppose that means for water coming down the Mississippi? On today's program, lots to discuss, and Rita Frazier will be joining us in just a couple of minutes. She's in D.C. for Washington Watch. It's an annual gathering in Washington that's why they call it Washington Watch. Hello. It's an annual gathering of farm broadcasters from across the country, and yesterday they talked with some folks at USDA. Secretary Perdue was out traveling, but Ted McKinney, one of the undersecretaries, also Greg Dowd, one of the chief ag negotiators, were part of that discussion. And so one of the things that you will hear discussed, also Richard Fordyce, a Missouri farmer who is the chief of USDA's Farm Service Agency. But one of the things that you'll hear in just a couple of minutes, Undersecretary McKinney talking about the notion of relief packages. And it really makes one wonder, because there's so much talk about being so close and talk still being open with folks in China about getting a trade deal done. If that's the case, then why such a quick talk about any kind of facilitation program? And what would it look like? Because this last one was a penny for corn and a $1.65 for soybeans. So would that cause, if were possible, people to make some considerations? Make some changes about what they wanted to plant this year? Would it impact acreage at all? And so lots to weigh in, but it sounds like this sort of thing is going to take place soon, not down the road, but somewhat soon. So you hear a whole bunch from folks in D.C. that Rita will be providing soon. Also, Jim Bauer Trading. Hey, do we have follow through of the markets today, still moving higher. Good time to talk to him. Stay tuned. This is RFD Today.
Hey, Noah. How was school today?
It was really fun. Our class had a field trip to Ethan's family's pig farm.
Did you learn anything interesting?
Yeah. When a pig gets a cold, his dad calls a pig doctor and gives him medicine, just like you give me when I'm sick.
It sounds like you learned a lot from Ethan's dad.
Yep. He told us healthy pigs are happy pigs.
Find out more about Illinois pig farmers at watchusgrow.org. Brought to you by Illinois Farm Bureau, where it's all about farm, family, and food.
If you're in the mood for some sprucing up, you're in luck. From big to small or farm to front yard, your Illinois Farm Bureau member discount from John Deere is ready and waiting to help. It's easy to think green when it's the Rewards Loyalty Program with savings on equipment, special parts, and home and workshop products. Whether your tasks involve mowing, planting, or cleaning, you'll be set for whatever your work requires. All you need to do is sign up, have your membership number handy, and go to johndeere.com/Farm Bureau.
Hi, this is Sabrina Hardy, RFD Business Manager. I want to thank you for listening to the RFD Radio Network, the #1 ag radio network in Illinois. Did you know RFD Radio Network's programming is being broadcast by Rita Frazier and Delosh Yankee with a combined 50 years of broadcasting experience? Join us daily. If you have any questions, email me at chardy@ilfb.org.
Welcome back to RFD Today. I'm Rita Frazier in the nation's capital this week for Washington Watch. The nation's farm broadcasters here to talk not only to elected officials, but the USDA and their top brass came out yesterday to talk to us and get messages back to farmers. Ted McKinney, Undersecretary for Trade and Foreign Ag Affairs, talks about the disappointment in the breakdown of the China trade talks last week, but he does say he remains optimistic for those talks to continue, and also he mentioned another mitigation program in the works.
China is probably on your mind. And I think you know, or if you've read, we are in the middle of developing some sort of a mitigation program, a different mitigation program. I do think that's going to come far sooner than perhaps some of the lay press reported. We're working very diligently, all of us. This is an all-hands-on-deck kind of thing, at the President and Secretary Perdue's request so that we can give immediate relief immediate and long term. There's some market development in there too, for our farmers and ranchers. It is unfortunate that the disagreement was realized with China. It's probably not surprising. I will tell you that discussions on ag had gone well. We were pleased. But I'll never forget, we were on a digital video conference, and I looked at Mr. Dowd, and he looked at me, and we said, this is different. And we sensed this backsliding starting. And then we compared our notes with other teams. So there was distinctly a change of views by our friends in China. But that doesn't mean we're mad at them. We do believe, we still believe, I am still optimistic that we're going to get there. And I read that the President... Well, he committed, I think, that he'll be visiting with President Xi Jinping on the margins of the G20, and that's a good thing. If you're still talking, it's a good thing. So I'm optimistic because I think China really does need the U.S., and certainly we need and want them. So we're working through these things, but I still am optimistic that we will get there.
McKinney also said he believes the details of that mitigation program for farmers will be rolled out in a matter of days, not weeks or months.
But I think it's more like days, not weeks, months. So that's as close as I can get because I don't want to get out ahead of the Secretary or the President. But the intent is to be quick because we want to send a powerful message to, first, our farmers and ranchers and the ag world, but also to our friends around the world that ag is not up for debate. The diversity, the portfolio, if I can use, I think is going to be very diverse. I don't want to get into specifics, but it's all the above. We're still finalizing it, and so some pieces may come and go, ebb and flow, but we're looking at all of those things. Some of the types of programs that you saw in the three-headed monster, your words, not mine, thanks. But also other things, because we want to be robust, and we want to make sure that farmers really get the message that while trade is preferred, the administration has their backs, given the strife they've been through over these last many, many months. So it's an all-of-the-above strategy, and you're going to see some new things, and you'll see some traditional or some things like we did before.
Ted McKinney, Undersecretary for Trade and Foreign Ag Affairs, USDA. Many of those negotiations between China and the U.S. when it came to agriculture involved Ted McKinney and Greg Dowd. Dowd being the chief ag negotiator at the Office of USTR. Dowd gave us the agriculture perspective in the trade talks with China.
In agriculture, we have the most to gain from an agreement with China, and we also have the most to lose without an agreement with China. Ted and I we've been on most of these together. We've had the first conversation just about a year ago. Since that time, we've had about 20 or 21 negotiating sessions with my counterpart, Vice Minister of Agriculture, Han Jun. These conversations have been historic, in my opinion. We have spent hours and hours and hours talking about an enormous number of issues in agriculture. And I want to put this in some context for you today to help you understand the scope and the magnitude of issues just in agriculture. So we exported $19.6 billion worth of agricultural products to China in 2017, and it dropped significantly, obviously, in 2018 to $9.3 billion, even though overall U.S. ag exports last year were up $2 billion to about $145 billion. To put that in context, let's talk about China for a minute. In 2018, China's total agricultural imports were $124 billion. So total U.S. ag exports, 145. Total Chinese imports of agricultural products, 124. So in a good year, we're getting 20 out of 124 of what China imports. And the point I've made from the beginning of this conversation and continue to make with my counterpart in China is that 20 out of 124 just isn't going to cut it. And the frank fact of the matter is, yes, we import or export to China somewhere around $13 billion worth of soybean. But if you look through all of the other commodities, whether it's wheat, corn, soybeans, rice, ethanol, distillers' grains, dairy products, we could go into a lot of different products here on the beef, pork, and poultry side of the equation. We have almost no access. Let me repeat that. We have almost no access in most of these other commodities. And in fact, here is a very telling statistic. In just the month of March, the month before last, the most recent trade data, China imported $965 million worth of beef, pork, and poultry combined.
Farm Week and Partners Magazine editor Chris Anderson connects rural routes for you. Chris shares her 4 decades of writing expertise by making sure each edition delivers the best information. Here's a bit about her rural roots.
I was raised on a farm in Champaign County growing corn, soybeans, popcorn, pumpkins, and poultry. My top priority is to inform, educate, and even entertain Farm Bureau members.
Be it routes or roots, RFD Radio, FarmWeekNow.com, and Farm Week keep you connected.
Spring is here and things are buzzing. Farmers and pollinators are working together to help feed us. In fact, 1 out of every 3 bites of food we eat exists because of bees, butterflies, birds, bats, and other insects. Pollinators are important to our food system and the ecosystem overall. That's why farmers and those in the agricultural industry are working together to protect pollinators through education, research, and conservation efforts. Visit ilagformonarchs.org to join the buzz. That's ilagformonarchs.org.
You're going to need me.
You're going to need us.
All of us.
You're going to need our technical skills,
our math, our engineering skills.
You're going to need our help with your water, your air, your food.
You're going to need our organizational skills, our problem-solving skills.
You're going to need our determination, our honesty, our compassion.
You're going to need the next generation of leaders to face the challenges the future will bring.
And we promise, we'll be there when you need us.
Today, 4-H is growing the next generation of leaders. Support us at 4h.org.
This is the story of Mrs. Clark, who has lived on this very block most of her 80 years, often seen walking to town or serving brownies to the neighborhood kids, and everyone loves her. 2 years ago, a certain family member moved in to look after Mrs. Clark, and that's when everything changed. Mrs. Clark became the victim of elder abuse.
Elder abuse is often closer to home than you think or want to believe. McGruff, the crime dog here. The National Crime Prevention Council wants you to know the signs of elder abuse. Bruises, isolation, reduced activities, poor hygiene, depression, and financial problems. Protect yourself and speak out if you recognize signs of abuse in others.
Elder abuse is a crime that affects over 2 million senior citizens every year. Even more astounding, it's most commonly committed by a family member or someone they trusted. If you suspect abuse, contact your local law enforcement agency. To learn more, go to ncpc.org/seniors. That's ncpc.org/seniors. A message from the National Crime Prevention Council and the U.S. Department of Justice.
We're back here on RFD today on a Wednesday. I'm Rita Frazier. We're in D.C. with farm broadcasters from around the nation for Washington Watch, our annual visit here to D.C., spending some quality time at USDA yesterday with officials like Richard Fordyce. He's administrator of the Farm Service Agency. Fordyce talked about the tough situation out there for U.S. farmers, especially for the dairy industry, and talk more about the 2014 dairy program and the new program for dairy producers.
So we had the margin protection program for dairy under the 14 Farm Bill. Lots of interest, lots of sign up at the beginning when that program was rolled out, and it really just didn't accomplish the things that I think the authors thought that it would. So there were some adjustments for a short period of time due to the Bipartisan Budget Act that was passed in February of 2018, and then they really took a look at it in the new bill. And so margin protection program is now Dairy Margin Coverage, DMC. So anyway, Dairy Margin Coverage program, those issues in MPP that were really not working well, they really took a look at. So raised the coverage levels, opportunities for producers to select higher coverage levels, lowered the premiums, and then offered an opportunity, or will offer an opportunity, for those producers that had paid premiums in the old margin protection program to be able to apply those as a 75% credit toward premiums in the new program, or get a 50%, the value of those premiums minus any payments that they would have gotten, 50% cash payment. So offering some flexibility around that, I think was really important. There's a lot of interest certainly in the program. We'll begin sign up on June 17th for the DMC program. We've been working, kind of simultaneously across the different programs that we'll administer at Farm Service Agency, but the dairy program was priority one to get sign up for producers out the door first. We're on track to be able to do that.
Fordyce also talked about the 2018 Farm Bill and getting to work on the details. As he mentioned, there's a lot of work to be done.
There's still a lot of work that needs to be done. Certainly the process that we would go through is after the Farm Bill was agreed upon and passed, President signed it on the 20th of December. We started looking then at the legislation between the two bills, the 14 and the 18 Farm Bill. And so we did that across all of those programs, whether it was CRP or livestock disaster programs, ARC PLC, the Dairy Margin Coverage Program. And by comparing the language from the two bills, that kind of gives you what the lift is going forward. So, how much work do we need from an IT perspective? So modernizing our systems to be able to administer those programs, writing the handbooks, the guidance for all of our employees, nearly 11,000 employees across 2,124 county offices that are going to administer these programs. So from an administrative standpoint, we've got two really large assets. One is our people, and second is all of our IT platforms that support the administration of those programs. ARC PLC, again, some changes there, I think, that were positive. I would say that probably a lot of producers that made those elections in 2014, as market situations changed, they probably would have maybe made some different elections elections had they had the chance. Well, the new Farm Bill allows for that. Producers will make an election in 19. We're going to start sign up for ARC PLC around September 1st. That election is also good for the 2020 crop. And then producers will have an opportunity, if they so choose, in 2021, 2022, and 2023 to make different elections if it looks like that would be the right decision to make. So from a CRP standpoint, certainly one of our really kind of foundational programs, the accomplishments that producers have been able to gain through voluntary conservation efforts with CRP since the beginning in 1985, I think, are monumental. You know, the amount of soil erosion that's been prevented, the improvements to water quality. Not a lot of changes in CRP, although the cap has now been raised by the end of this Farm Bill. 27 million acres will be the cap. And Congress recognized the need for additional acres in CRP.
Richard Fordyce, Administrator, Farm Service Agency. Bill Northey, a friend to many farm broadcasters, is Undersecretary for Farm Production and Conservation. He also talked about the China trade deal breakdown, help for farmers, and other areas of interest as the Midwest deals with disasters and late planting.
The President and the Secretary said we're going to stand with our farmers. I think the most important thing they've all said as well is we need an agreement, but we need a good agreement. We're not just going to sign anything. Certainly if the Chinese back away from some of the commitments they make, then we need to bring them back to the table. I think they're committed to that. In the meantime, we have some producers that are hurting, and we'll figure out what we need to do to be able to come up with some support for those producers if this continues to go on for a while. You know, we had a market facilitation program last year. I guess the summary of that is we had about 600,000 producers that participated, about 1 million contracts, because some of those producers had more than one crop that they participated in, and about $8.5 billion in direct payments. Other money went out in food purchases and in the program to be able to build markets in other places as well. Let me say we've got some disasters around the Midwest, been active in trying to make sure that we've got some response to some of those disasters and programs that we can do. We need a bill that provides some more funding and some more authorities. We'll see. A bill has passed the House. We'll see what happens here in the Senate. There's some additional authorities in it. I don't know, and I'm not going to predict what's going to come out of that bill. But we need that both for the Midwest, but we need it for those areas hit by hurricanes last year as well.
Bill Northey, Undersecretary, Farm Production and Conservation. RFD Today continues. I'm Rita Frazier here on the RFD Radio Network.
More farm news and information ahead. Stay tuned for more RFD Today here on the Illinois Farm Bureau Radio Network.
When it comes to social media, Sabrina Berkowitz connects rural routes for you. Sabrina covers a broad range of ag topics, so Farm Bureau members are the first to know about key issues. Here's a bit about her rural roots.
I grew up with a grain and livestock farm in my extended family, and today I really enjoy helping people learn how to use social media to advocate for agriculture.
Be it routes or roots, RFD Radio, FarmWeekNow.com, and Farm Week keep you connected.
Attention corn farmers. Your corn checkoff dollars are working with the U.S. Meat Export Federation to grow red meat export volumes. Because when we're exporting beef, we're also exporting corn. The beef industry consumes 28% of all corn fed to livestock, plus additional corn in the form of DDGs, a co-product of ethanol production. Now that's what we call working an angle. Your checkoff is working corn from all angles. Because of the Illinois Corn Marketing Board, your profitability is our bottom line. A message from the Illinois Corn Checkoff.
What's the excitement about buying a brand new car when you pay full price for it? County Farm Bureau members have a reason to be excited. A Farm Bureau membership gives you 2 car purchase discounts. When members buy a new Ford vehicle, they receive $500 off their purchase. And with a purchase of a qualifying Lincoln vehicle, they receive $750 off. Everyone loves a good deal, and the money saved is worth the price of our annual membership. This is just one of our 300,000 plus discounts that are always changing to fit our members' needs. Not a Farm Bureau member? Visit Illinois Farm Bureau online and join today.
As you prepare for planting season, remember your neighbors. Whether you're an applicator, grower, or beekeeper, use FieldWatch to register your farm and monitor for sensitive sites around you. FieldWatch is a free, easy-to-use online mapping tool. Consulting FieldWatch is now a requirement for the over-the-top use dicamba products. Communicating with your neighbors will help you protect your farm and the environment. Don't wait. Go online to fieldwatch.com. Growing agriculture. We grow best together.
All Ag.
All Illinois.
All Now.
There are a lot of smartphone apps out there, but do they have what's important to us here in Illinois? The Farm Week Now app does, and it's always at your fingertips. All Ag, all Illinois, and 24/7 where and when you need it for free. Go to your app or Play Store on your smartphone, hit search, type in Farm Week Now, that's one word, and download it today. Brought to you by Illinois Farm Bureau, where we're all about farm, family, and food. Does the warmer weather have you itching for a weekend getaway? Take your Illinois Farm Bureau membership savings with you.
Farm Bureau members can save up to 20% at choice hotels, including favorites like Comfort Suites, Sleep Inn, Quality Inn and Suites, with even more to choose from.
Call 800-258-2847 or visit the Choice Hotels website to search all the hotels at once and to make advance reservations.
Contact your local County Farm Bureau for your discount code number.
Welcome back to RFD Today on a Wednesday. I'm DeLois Yonke. Jim Bauer is on the phone, regular chat with the folks at Bauer Trading. Jim, how are you today?
Good. It's an interesting day right off the bat.
Well, so no correction yet, follow through. So that was quite and I know the overnights were higher, but that was one thing, was after you gained double figures for corn, wheat, and 29 cents for soybeans, what the encore was going to be. So far, so good.
Well, as you know, I've been doing this a long time, and I was taught from the very, very beginning by a very skilled trader to always remember that weather markets are mercurial, which means they can go up and down pretty fast and on quick notice. They can be extreme in price fluctuation, which is kind of what we're seeing now, and they're very, very difficult to master because they change on you all the time. Remember that weather forecasts more than a few days old are not too reliable, even though the technologies that we have today certainly make it a situation where you can be more accurate. I was just looking at the precipitation forecast for the Midwest, and it looks pretty wet to me, particularly on the extended model that goes out into the northern and western Corn Belt. Now, they've been doing some pretty active field work out there, but they're going to get held up, it looks to me like. So what I'm trying to say is this is a weather market. We are in a weather market, and you've got to be cognizant of changes in the weather forecast. But certainly, there's a lot of producers that would love to be able to go to the field, and it's just plain too wet.
Well, Eastern Corn Belt in particular, Indiana had virtually no progress. Ohio's got nothing done, and Illinois has had such little as well over here as you start moving toward the Western Corn Belt. And, we're still paying, we're paying for wetness in March, and not to mention even it's a couple of weeks ago now that the fields are still relatively wet. So it's interesting that buy-in is taking place already. I was afraid it was going to have to go into June before things would really start to wake up and notice some issues there.
Yes, I drove from Indianapolis to Lafayette this morning, and I didn't see a wheel turning in any place, and you can still see standing water in a lot of these fields, which are normally dry this time of year. They're relatively well tiled, but even with good tiling systems, the flow of water has been so much it just hasn't been able to handle it. So, again, remember that major trends in the marketplace are seldom broken unless the market goes against the trend for more than 3 consecutive days, and today would be the third day of this counter-cyclical move we've been seeing with a pretty sharp up move just since Monday morning. So we'll have to pay attention to that. Again, weather models can change rapidly for you or against you, so pay close attention. This market could get quite volatile. Again, I need to stress this is not a supply-demand situation. It's not a tariff situation. This is a weather market, which will be ruled and guided by weather forecast.
I was just going to ask that. So weather has dibs, or weather holds the trump card, if you will, over supply and demand, over whatever talks are going on with China, anything like that?
Well, in unison with the weather model and models, remember that as of Monday morning, if you combine corn, beans, wheat, meal, and oil futures contracts, the managed funds were short 629,000 contracts. Let me repeat that, 629,000 contracts. So a lot of that is still short and is getting burnt pretty bad right now. So we'll see how much of a move it takes to force them out of there. But the market seems to be on a mission to try to get to them and to get them to cover their short positions, at least short term.
Surely that's some sort of record. I mean, that sounds like an unprecedented kind of number.
Yeah, that's the record. That's a huge number, and they piled some of that on at the low. So I'm a little surprised to see the market react this way. But when you drive by the field, as you say, it's so wet, we're not getting much field work done, and we're approaching the end of May, first part of June. We should be done or finishing up now instead of starting.
Is there any connection to, the algorithms and the automation? I mean, if the traders were actually looking at each other in the eye with the pit in the pits, saying, "Look, you're too far short. You got to do something about this." I mean, is this a function of automation that would allow such short positions, or I mean, is it more market based than I would give it credit for?
Well, I think, being in my position and the long time I've been in this market, watching every tick for almost 50 years, to be honest with you, I miss the feedback and the rhythm of the marketplace in the pits, because it gave you kind of an emotional feel for the market as opposed to just supply-demand numbers. It gave you kind of a feel for the rhythm of the market. And of course, with computers and algorithmic trade, we lose a lot of that, so we don't have that element of the market to help us. And I think in this type of market it would help, but we don't have it because it's been replaced by algorithmic and computer funds. So we'll have to live with it. It's not going to go away, but certainly the funds can be wrong just like all of us can.
Right. Well, here we are. We're up 11 to 12 on soybeans at the time that we're doing this interview, and 8 to 9 for corn, so we'll see how this continues through the day. We have a break coming up. I do want to ask you plenty more after the break, Jim, including the projection that was thrown out with the reports last week of 176 bushels per acre for corn. We can talk about that a little bit. And now, if we keep moving, this gets to the point where folks start to say, well, let's see if we can get another nickel in here. What kind of decisions do we make, and how do we protect our downside now that we've had this move up? That all to come on a Wednesday, RFD Today.
When it comes to our members, Chris Magnuson connects rural routes for you. Chris leads Illinois Farm Bureau's efforts to provide valuable information to our members. He has spent 2 decades with IFB. Here's a bit about his rural roots.
I grew up on a farm with corn, soybeans, and Christmas trees. I've been in ag communication for 3 decades now. My greatest satisfaction has always remained the same, to serve our members.
Be it routes or roots, RFD Radio, FarmWeekNow.com, and Farm Week keep you connected.
From midnight snacks to holiday gatherings, food is a part of our culture that brings us together every day. To make sure we all have food on our tables, Illinois farmers are going beyond planting crops and raising animals. We're making sure the wildlife that helps our food grow has homes too. To learn more about conservation efforts, visit ilfarmersconserve.com. Preserving our water, protecting our land, providing our food.
This message brought to you by Illinois Farm Bureau.
Let's check the markets on the RFD Radio Network. I'm DeLoss Yankee. 8 to 9 higher on nearby corn contracts. July corn up 9.5, 378 1/4. They hit a high of 380 today. September corn up 9, 386 1/4. December up 8 1/4, 396. Its high was 397 3/4. July soybeans up 12.5, 844. August up 12.5, 850.5. November up 11, 867.5. That's 4 cents off its high for the day. Soy meal up another 4.90. Soybean oil up 30. July wheat up another 13.25, 461 3/4. June hogs up another $1.10, 90.22. July up 92, 90.97. Hogs have been up $3.50 the last day plus, but cattle still can't follow along. June cattle down a nickel, 109.45. It's the RFD Radio Network. Welcome back to RFD Today on Wednesday. I'm DeLawes Yonke. Jim Bowers joining us over the phone from Bauer Trading in Lafayette, Indiana. And, boy, I bet that all those folks that built businesses there, you know, there's Lafayette and there's West Lafayette and there's the river in between, and I assume that water got fairly high over there, pretty close to town, didn't it?
Yes, it got high when we had that series of rains. It started to back down now a little bit, but as you just discussed, there is rain in the forecast, pretty extensive and pretty significant because some of the models are taking this heavy rain pattern clear out to the end of the month.
Yes.
So again, it is a weather market, and that's how we're going to have to play it, either good or bad.
I always wondered when they built all that retail down there, down the hill from campus, if water would ever get up to there. But that's gotta have retail in places like that, it seems. All right, let me ask you about last week's reports, if I may, which threw out 176 bushels for corn. I don't know what else scientifically they could have come up with, especially this early in the year. You have to base the markets off something, but if we're in a weather market now, is that number already out the window, or what do you think?
Well, I haven't heard the chatter for the yield to the degree I've heard prevent planted acres maybe going to be a sharp increase now. We'll have to wait and see. There's talk of pretty high acreage there. 176 under these kind of circumstances, with the crop now going to be put in significantly later than we were hoping to, as compared to the last several years. Remember, it hasn't been just last year we had good planting weather. It's in 3 or 4 years in a row we had decent in most areas. But I don't think the yield factor has come into play quite yet. That could be the spark that really turns on this bonfire of accumulated short positions by the funds. That might be the thing that really puts the heat on them to come out of their short positions. But in reality, I would tell myself I think the yield is already coming down, and it certainly can't match last year's. We're just off to such a poor start, and some of these fields look terrible.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's going to be so much repair on the little spots of erosion that's going to need to be done. That kind of touch up, and these wet spots are still awfully wet, and how do we get in there and get this done in such a rapid manner as well? The old 4-row planter, you could go around it a lot easier than you could with what we have today. But we already have December corn has, let's see, the high for the day, 397 3/4. So we're right back to where we were. So is this an opportunity? Because now I can already hear people saying, well, let's see if it goes to 4. What if it goes to 405 or that sort of thing? How do we take advantage of this if we should at this point?
Well, as a general strategy in this type of marketplace, we could start making some degree of sales. It doesn't sound unreasonable after this big of a rally, and then maybe protect it with some call options above the markets, just in case this weather pattern stays as bad as it's been so far during this early planting season. But the thing about it is I've never believed in blanket marketing programs. I've always felt that you should look at it on an individual basis on your farm or ranch. You do your numbers for yourself and what you've got to accomplish as far as the ending year end, and go with it from there. You can always match a trade up with a degree of risk if you work at it hard enough and long enough. If there's any one fault that I think farmers and ranchers tend to kind of drift today is They'll spend $750,000 for a piece of equipment, but they won't spend $7,000 for some marketing advice and a second opinion or a third opinion in some cases. But the younger generation, they seem to be a little bit more adaptable to that type of philosophy, and they search for information aggressively through the internet system, which we didn't have, 25, 30 years ago. It's changed the way we analyze market decisions.
I know the local elevator guy, he can't tell the farmer what to do, he could just give advice. Are you in the same boat where, I can give you plenty of advice? Of course, at the very end, the farmer still has to be the one pulling that trigger.
Yes, I think that's exactly right. We here at Bauer Trading, we try to match the program with the individual. Certain customers are more risk tolerant than others. I mean, if you have 8,000 or 9,000 acres of corn to plant and price, I mean, you can dollar cost average that up as a scale up type situation, especially in this type of market where you're making pretty big moves relatively quick. Because remember now, the weather forecast changes rapidly and goes back to warmer and drier and lack of threats. The market is going to get a pretty significant correction real quick. So it's very important that they pay attention to this market today through the weekend, because this is a very critical time frame. In other words, what I'm saying is the critical time frame came earlier than I expected. Mm-hmm. And it's caught these funds completely off guard.
Well, then, so like what you said, then if a weather market comes out with a different forecast, or if the market can move on a different forecast, then it can move almost as quickly, or maybe even as quickly as what we're seeing right now. It could easily go in the other direction just that quickly.
It reminds me what happens at pollination time and tasseling time, when on the weekends those weather forecasts can change 180 degrees in a matter of minutes, and the market can be sharply higher or sharply lower on Monday the next day. So this reminds me of that as far as the way the market's moving so fast, so quickly.
It's interesting because, for so long, wheat has been a millstone around corn. Well, Monday, wheat actually seemed to pull corn higher, and all three are behaving in this way right now. It's not like wheat is putting a lid on, like it has been in so many different occasions.
Well, there was a lot of short position in there, and they had beaten that market up so bad. We lost quite a bit of export business because our competition was undercutting us all the time, particularly out of the Black Sea region. That's been ongoing now for several years, and they've got a pretty good crop coming. So, again, don't rest too easy, and don't take your eyes off the market. This market can change quickly. But I still think the market is eventually going to flush out those funds, short positions. I don't think they're done working them over yet.
If you had a weather market and a trade deal at the same time, would that just be Katie bar the door then, do you think, at least for a little bit?
Technically, it looks to me like the market wants to go higher. So, yes, I think you combine a more optimistic tariff situation and further bad weather, you're going to take out the moving averages that have been providing resistance to the market, and that'll happen relatively sharply and fast, just like we've experienced this week.
Yeah. At least give us USMCA for Mexico and Canada so we can move to those important customers. Jim, we got to scoot, though. We appreciate your time. If I ever get to Zionsville sometime, I'd love to buy you a tenderloin at the Friendly. But for now, just appreciate the conversation.
Yes, well, you have a good week, and I appreciate the offer.
All right. Jim Bauer at Bauer Trading. By the way, the 800 number, the national 800 number is 800-533-8045. Lincoln had a historic stop in Zionsville, gave a speech outside the back of a train there. I think it was part of the presidential campaign back in the day. Look for Farm Week's Livestock Special Edition publishing June 17. Latest developments in livestock, as well as providing an outlook for market prices and meat consumption. If you have products or services for farmers, place an ad today. You can call 800-676-2353. This is RFD today. Let's check livestock markets on the RFD Radio Network. I'm DeLoss Yankee. Illinois Direct Hog Market yesterday held steady. We've been steady there for a little more than a week now. $51 to $57 a hundredweight. Sow market was a little weaker, though, 50 to 59 on lightweights, 56 to 65 on heavyweights. Light boar is still with the top of 32. Tuesday, Packer Day at Fairview Sale Barn. Market continues to weaken a little bit. The live cattle futures have had multiple days of lower closes, 16 out of the last 18 days, in fact. Steers and heifers, choice 2 to 4 is 119 to 122.5. Some high-yielding steers, 124.5. The gap between select and choice, that spread continues to widen. Mixed select and choice, 115 to 119. Premium white slaughter cows with a top of 116. The Los Yankee RFD Radio Network.
How do people benefit from raising livestock here in Illinois? Rich Giebert, Illinois farmer, president of the Illinois Farm Bureau.
Well, growing up on a livestock farm was always interesting, and I enjoy it more today than I did back then. But it did give me the opportunity to have a good work ethic, learn to get up in the morning. And you know, that was difficult during my senior days at high school and college days. I had a tendency not to go to bed at a respectable hour. But no, it was always enjoyable on the farm and getting up before daybreak and milking the cows and getting the chores done and then go about the rest of the day's business.
Illinois Farm Bureau, along with beef, corn, milk, pork, and soybean associations, make up the Livestock Development Group, supporting the Illinois livestock sector. For more information, check out illinoislivestock.org.
Pete Fondel is a professor at Illinois Central College, two-year school up in East Peoria, just up the hill from the Illinois River. And starting summer classes already, which is good because they haven't planted anything. They have 50 acres with which to work and could use a little bit of help as well. So students will have some hands-on this summer to get some work done that would probably have normally taken place in the spring semester. But a big commitment to water quality with the studies that take place in those fields.
Well, sure. We've got the big water quality study we started here several years ago. On the hillside of the property here, we have two fields side by side, kind of in a paired field study, where both fields have new tile lines put in them about 3 years ago. One field's farmed more, quote, conventionally with no tillage, corn and soybean rotation. The other field is pretty much no-till with cover crops every year. And the tile lines done in both have monitoring systems on the tile lines. So whenever there's water flowing to the tile lines, there's automatic water samplers pulling water samples out of those two tile lines. And then we analyze them for nutrient concentration to see the effect of the different practices on nitrogen and phosphorus getting into the tile lines. And then after the water leaves those two fields and gets tested, those two fields, then that water flows through a bioreactor, which we do have, which has automated water sampling on it as well. And then the final step of that project is going to happen this summer. The entire 50 acres on our campus that we farm it drains into a 12-inch tile main that leaves our campus. And we're going to actually build, the week of July 22nd this year, we're going to build a 1-acre wetland that will filter all the water off all the 50 acres on the campus. And again, we'll have water sampling before and after the wetland to study its effectiveness as well.
What do you have to do to constitute that as a wetland?
It has to be a constructed wetland. It was designed by the Wetlands Initiative, and then their plan was then sent to NRCS, so they approved it as well. We actually had to get a couple of permits to build it here on the campus, and all that's taken place. So, so the week of July 22nd, then we'll actually build the wetland. There'll be a big field day here, several field days here during that week that'll open to the public. One of the agencies is going to be doing a big training session on designing and construction of wetlands. And then obviously after the wetland's built, it'll get all seeded and plugs of different wetland plants put into the wetland. And again, it'll have water sampling before and after it, and it'll also have an automated water control structure in it, so that basically the gate will be monitored automatically by the depth of the water in the wetland. It'll control the water depth, so it should retain water pretty much year-round to some degree. Unless it gets super, super hot in July and August. But it should. But so yeah, we'll use it as a big study the effectiveness of wetlands on nutrient removal and water.
How long did it take you to go through some of that paperwork process?
Well, I mean, we had the initial idea probably a couple of years ago to try this. And I wouldn't say the paperwork was too huge. It was just getting an approval from all the different entities that we needed to do, getting it approved through the college as well, and making it fit into the overall plan of the future of the college.
Wow. Do you have to go out there and read anything, or how much of that information is delivered straight to you?
Well, what happens is the water samples, once they're collected, about once a week, an intern goes out and pulls all the water sample bottles out of all the samplers, and they get shipped off to a lab to be analyzed, and then we get the results back from the lab on each sample that was taken during that week.
Is it noticeable, or have you been able to do it often enough where you can specifically tell a difference on just the no-till as well as the cover crop side? Is there a difference?
Yeah, the two fields that are paired study, we've been doing those now. They've been running for over 2 full years. And they show, and it varies obviously by season a little bit, but there's pretty easily a 30 to 40% reduction in nitrates and stuff in the tile water between those two farming methods, and cover crops being in there as well. And other universities that have similar projects to this one, that's kind of what their data's, most of the data is pointing to about a 40% reduction on average of nitrogen not getting to the tile lines from just having a cover crop planted out there.
And then in a year like this, you drive past the field where you see so much topsoil in the ditch. Even with no-till, do you see a significant difference of what's held in place just by using the cover crops?
Oh, yeah, definitely. No-till does help to some extent, obviously, with erosion, but there's a huge benefit to a cover crop being out there on the erosion side. You can see fields side by side when you drive around the countryside. Ones that got cover crops and one doesn't, and just see a massive amount of difference of soil that's been moved in one field versus the other.
Does it have to be sloped like yours is to make a difference?
I think there's a lot of soil moves from what we consider flat ground that people just don't realize there's as much movement as what there really is. So no, I think there's a huge benefit on the flatter ground even to have just something protecting that surface from wind and water erosion both. And
there's only so much stubble in soybeans anyway. So even if you no-till them, there's not a whole lot holding that sort of thing together.
Yeah, soybeans only leave about 2.5 tons of residue on the surface, and usually by spring, quite a bit of that's been broken down to some degree already. So there's not a super lot of protection there. Okay,
now, and at the same time, do you notice a difference just in how everything is holding moisture? Would the cover crops, once you get rid of them, hopefully does that make it easier to get in there faster, do you think?
Yeah, if you look at what most of the trends are saying, and if you look at most fields with cover crops in them, number one, when you get these big rain events, a much higher percentage of your water will infiltrate into the soil versus run off. So more of the water is going to go in instead of eroding. And then because of all the root systems, the actual roots you have of the living plant growing there, a lot of times we're seeing in the spring, the fields where the cover crop's still living will actually dry out quicker in the spring because you have those plants there essentially sucking moisture out of the ground, like the transpiration taking place and actually helping dry the soil out a little better.
Pete Fondel, professor at Illinois Central College and also farmer himself, he has waist-high cover crops at this time, cereal rye, on his farm in Woodford County, but he plans to plant soybeans directly